Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. Right now I am in Las Vegas, and I'm your host, Clayton Fletcher. I'm going to start off this episode right away, bring on our guest, because I don't want to make you guys wait for listening to me talk about nothing when we all have a special gem hidden in our pocket. I want to introduce someone I've known for many, many years. She was an extremely successful chess player who is responsible for bringing several members of the chess playing community into our little world of poker, and she's put up incredible results ever since. Please welcome to the program my friend Katie Stone. Hi, Katie.
Hey, Clayton. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. When they first asked me to start hosting the podcast, I thought immediately about who I would like to interview, and you are one of the first people that I thought of.
Wow.
I've known you for a long time. I really respect your approach to poker. I've had the misfortune of playing at your table on numerous occasions. And you clearly know what you're doing. I joke around with Julie Cornelius, our mutual friend, all the time. I joke with her that you own my soul. I was like, anything I tried, anything I've ever tried against Katie Stone failed miserably. It's like you're my kryptonite.
It makes me feel terrible in a way, but because it would be different if I knew that that's how you felt. But this is the absolute first time I'm hearing that, like, I've done these terrible, terrible things to you. And but you know what? I understand how you feel, because there was somebody who was like that for me, like back pre-Black Friday days online, and he just like would own me every single time, or he just like had it every single time. So it was just like, how could both of these things be going your way like every single time? And then like the first time I met him in real life during the World Series in Vegas, I was just like, wow, you're just amazing. You're just so much better. And he just had the exact same reaction. He was like, oh my gosh, no.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. So for a lot of people, maybe going to a table in Vegas during the World Series of Poker and seeing, Dan Smith or Jason Mercier would be like their worst nightmare. My nightmare is seeing Katie Stone at my table. I lose sleep at night. Like, I hope Katie's not going to be at my table.
Oh my goodness.
No, you are a terrific player. You're not afraid to make big calls. You're not afraid to make bluffs. And I don't know, I think that you have a really good game, very respectable game. But before I get into the specifics of your poker, and by the way, guys, Katie recently won a little something out in New Jersey. What was that, Katie? Why don't you tell them?
We recently at Borgata just finished the Fall Poker Open, which is the series that runs every year. It's about a 2-week series that culminates with the $2,700 million guarantee main event. And there's all these prelims and postlims that take place, and they're just like random, like $300 150K guarantee, or $50 or $500 500K guarantee, or $500 100K guarantee, and they just kind of run continuously. So it was just one of those prelims. I think it was the 300 150 guarantee that we ended up chopping, and I took first. So that was where I was like for 20K. But my husband chopped the first event, the opener, heads up in an even chop for like 128K, like 48 hours earlier.
Wow. See, I didn't even know that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So that was kind of funny, because I tweeted that, that I was playing the tournament, and then I tweeted, and he told me, like, this is after he won and I was playing the tournament. He's like, all right, go play the tournament and make sure you bag the chip lead. And so then, like, I bagged the chip lead on day one. And
Right,
so
and I saw your tweet about that,
yeah.
and I said, wow, I guess if it could only always be that easy, right?
I know, but it was just so funny because it's like, everybody tells you to do that every time, and obviously, like, it doesn't happen every time. But so it was funny. I just continued with that thread and just said, well, things worked out in the end, and we won the tournament. So
yeah. Well, congratulations to both of you.
Thanks.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a good week. It was a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, until the tax bill comes, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, right? These are the problems we want to have, so.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you also had a deep run in the main event this year out in Vegas.
Yeah, I busted, like 45 minutes left in the day on day 4 of the main, and it was a really, really, really terrible, it's probably like the most important hand of my life, absolutely. And sure. I just got, very unlucky. I feel like I owned my opponent, and my opponent happened to be Brian Altman.
Oh, wow.
And he got very lucky, all in on the turn. He got very lucky on the river, and that was the end of my main event, and it was really traumatic.
Well, Katie, as the kids say today, it be like that sometimes.
Yeah.
It just sucks when it be like that during the main event. So
yeah.
I'm sure that lots of people go home from the Rio with, I can't believe what just happened kind of thoughts. I feel that way after each and every bust out of every tournament, just a little bewildered and a little delirious, and it's not fun. By the way, I'm foreshadowing a story that you want to tell me in a bit here about reacting to a bust out. I think you said you had a story about that. But I want to get to that in a minute. First, I'd like you to give everyone a little bit of background on chess and poker, and how did we end up here?
Yeah, I often wonder that myself.
Yeah.
I'm married with a 3-year-old, playing online poker for a living. It's not generally a traditional career path, but long story short, I grew up in chess. My family was very involved in organized chess in this country for a very, very long time. My grandfather started playing chess as a toddler because his father was, very involved in chess, and they were big. They were just big, kind of funders of very early international chess activity from U.S. players. So, for example, my grandfather actually was one of Bobby Fischer's sponsors in the 1972 Reykjavik World Championship versus Boris Spassky, and he was, he was a contributor to his education his entire life. He knew him from a child. My grandfather also was a sponsor of the U.S. blind chess team to go and play in the World Championships overseas. And so these are the kinds of activities that they were involved in. They weren't amazing players, but they were very good donators, so to speak.
Right.
So I started playing chess, very young. My grandfather had chess lessons for me, starting as a child. And then as I got older into high school, he would send me to chess tournaments all around. I was living in Houston with my mother. And so he would send me all around Texas to different chess tournaments. And so that was my upbringing in chess. And then when I was in college, I started a business that ran summer chess camps for kids. And then within like 5 years, that company had expanded to over 100 cities across the country offering summer chess camps to kids. So it grew quite rapidly and on a very large scale. And so it was very fortunate to kind of luck into that situation.
Wow.
Eventually decided to sell the majority of the company to switch to poker. And that's kind of like exactly what happened. I wanted to be a poker player, and I had this ability to not have to do anything for a while. I didn't have to jump into another career. My early 20s at this point. I had a house in Dallas. I had 2 horses 4 dogs, 3 cats.
Wow.
And, I just kind of started playing poker. And this was like 2005, 2006 is when I had kind of just started playing. And had a few, didn't really start out doing it the right way. Just kind of started playing live in the Dallas area, and then would go to tournaments like Oklahoma, Mississippi kind of thing. But, really was just a fish with a bankroll and not really knowing what I was doing. And so, obviously didn't have a great time, ended up losing a bunch of money, and was kind of traumatized from that situation and that experience. And
what have I done, right?
Yeah, what am I doing? Like I'm going from this like very successful career that I made up as I went along, and then now my next choice is just to throw it all away. So I quit poker actually. So this was like, 2006. I said I'm not going to play poker anymore. Whatever. I was burned out. I was annoyed, traumatized, and so I just decided to take some time off and figure out what I was going to do with my life. And then I don't know. I just kind of slowly over the next like 2 years, I really didn't do much of anything. And I just kind of slowly, started researching poker a little bit more and started, playing a little bit on the old party poker. Just kind of realized that I had made some pretty big mistakes, the first time around, and knew that I was smart enough to try to start again and try to do it more responsibly. And so that was, 2008, I started playing again, and here we are.
Well, that's quite a story. It's not often that I interview someone and say wow 4 times. But I think you just have a wow factor, Katie. This is impressive. From Bobby Fischer to what sounds like bankroll mismanagement, among other mistakes, and all the way back to winning tournaments at the Borgata. So, it's a wild ride. I wanted to ask you, my stereotype, I guess, about growing up in a chess family and being around chess from a very young age is that many of the children in that life feel pressure and they get stressed out about it. I guess the general question I'd like to ask you is, did you enjoy chess when you were very young, or did you just not really know anything else?
No, I mean, I think that it's really easy for a parent to understand if their child is enjoying themselves or not, because they just really won't learn if they're not enjoying themselves, And the thing with chess is that you, especially for kids, is you really need to enjoy what you're doing, and the kids really need to be having fun with what they're doing if they're going to improve at all. And I think for me, I definitely did not have that enjoyment that my family, mostly my grandfather, had envisioned. I don't think even his own son, my uncle, he tried to get him into chess as well. I don't think that he did either. But I also don't think it was like this huge disappointment, a life disappointment from him. I think he just wanted to, pass on his love of chess that had been passed on, to him, and he wanted to pass it on to us, hoping that something would stick. I definitely don't think he would have ever been able to predict that, it might not stick in the way that he wanted it to stick, but it would actually stick in a completely different way that had arguably, a much broader effect.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Very intriguing answer. I'm friends with some other chess players that, at least some of them for sure, like Jen Shahade, of course. Do you know Jeff Sarwer?
I don't know him personally, but it's obviously somebody who I've known of for, obviously over 20, or more than that years,
Sure. Yeah. Okay,
25 years.
So for anyone listening that doesn't know, Jeff Sarwer was kind of a young chess prodigy. And maybe he's, I'm friends with him, and maybe that's a reason why I have this stereotype in the first place. He had a very different sounding childhood than yours, where it wasn't like, oh, well, if the kids are enjoying it, we'll continue it, but if they're not enjoying it, then we'll let them try something else. It was more like, you will play music, you will play chess, and it was just kind of that sort of just mentality on the parents' side. And he was a big star in the chess world as a young boy. Everyone said, oh, he's the next Bobby Fischer or whatever. And just for those who don't know, he ended up disappearing out of the chess world. He actually wrote a screenplay about it that I'm praying we can get somebody to produce, because I think it's an incredible story. And then just he kind of resurfaces many years later as this amazing poker player. And so there seems to be a link between people who were good at chess, or maybe still are, but at least people that start off their lives very young with the chess background seem to have a flair for poker. Or maybe that's just the nature of playing games. Like, you learn about competition, you want to win. How connected do you think chess and poker really are?
I think that chess players who either switch to poker or who just also learn poker, like just brand new, fresh new game, I think that they probably have an edge just simply because they're used to learning a game and kind of looking at game theory, and also they understand how to improve, and they understand the time requirements necessary to improve. So like, versus somebody who is just some random guy who sees poker on TV and is like, oh, I want to start playing poker, which I've probably just described a very large population of the poker playing public as we know it today, right?
For sure. Definitely.
So like, this is what they would do. They say, okay, like, let me, whatever, like, go play, or who knows what they do to learn the game, if anything. Whereas a chess player coming into a new game is immediately going to start studying, and they're going to know how to study, and they're going to be very good at it. And so their ability to improve quickly just kind of really like puts a random player to shame, kind of, so there's definitely, an advantage in that. I
always thought that poker was a game that has a perfect balance of luck and skill. And, there are other games that combine those two elements. I always thought of chess as being a game that doesn't involve luck at all. But
there's a little bit of luck in chess.
Yeah, Jeff Sarwer made it clear to me that I was just deadly wrong about that. And then he proceeded to try to explain to me how luck works in chess, and he lost me after about 3 minutes. So.
Well, it comes into play like in just multiple different formats, so it's a little bit, it's just a very cumbersome topic, just because there can be luck on many different issues, many different levels, and many different whatever. So, but there definitely is luck. At the most basic form of luck, your opponent doesn't show up.
Right, so that's pretty lucky. You win automatically. Okay, all right, I'll give you that one.
It's like somebody sitting out, when you're, or whatever, like somebody's not logged in at the time the tournament starts, so you're playing 8-handed instead of 9-handed kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I could pick your brain all day, but I know that our listeners want us to get to strategy. So just before we do, tell us what you're doing for party poker in New Jersey these days.
So I'm a sponsored pro with BorgataPoker.com, and Borgata is MGM, and our software is the party poker software, but the skins, we have 3 skins in New Jersey, is Play MGM, Borgata Poker, and Party Poker, and they all look a little bit different. They all function a little bit differently from one another. And Play MGM is the newest skin, so that's the most updated skin. But anyway, so I play online poker for a living. I also play live poker here at Borgata, but I'd say it's probably like an 80-20 split, 80% online, 20% live.
Okay.
There's generally like, a series that runs here at Borgata probably on average every like 7 weeks or something. There'll be like either a 5-day deep stack series or or a 1-day 100K or like a 2-week, what other deeper stack series, So I guess you could, I guess a term that's been used before is ambassador. But the term that they use for us is sponsored pro. And yeah, I mean, my responsibilities, are, quite different, I think, from what the sponsored pros of the past, have, meaning that I'm not a high roller. So I'm not somebody who's out there playing live 10Ks and firing. I'm not playing 25Ks. I'm not, going to Europe anymore. I'm staying home, playing online poker and taking care of my son. So
she's just like us. She puts her pants on one leg at a time and she gets up, goes to work, takes care of her family. I have a lot of experience from, being a full-time online player pre-Black Friday and then, post-Black Friday, moving to Mexico and then playing live in Vegas. And so I've kind of, run the gamut, so to speak, of being a low to mid stakes full-time grinder. Additionally with my prior life's experience of starting a company and successfully, exiting, not 100%, but, at an early age, that also, was a very unrestricting experience, meaning that I had never been restricted creatively in any way before. And so that experience has been very valuable for my working with Borgata Poker because they are able to do a lot of things that other sites are not able to do. And so it's been a really, really fun first year working with them because we've gotten to do a lot of cool things. Amazing. And what about Tournament Poker Edge? Have you had much experience with our site at all?
So it's interesting. I actually, when I got back into poker, the second time around, 2008, 2009, I was a subscriber to Tournament Poker Edge. So I used to watch a lot of those. That was that was a very, very big influencer in my early online days, like mid 2009. That I was I started online full time beginning 2009, but mid 2009, I was playing all the sites and I was really grinding.
Yeah, good one to learn from for sure.
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, let's get into some strategy. By the way, I take exception with you calling yourself a small to mid stakes grinder when you told me already you played the Borgata main event, which was like $3,000, and I see you in Vegas playing the 10K main event. So I don't think you can use small. You could say you're mid stakes if you want to, because nowadays high stakes means that you go with like the German contingent to like $100,000 high rollers twice a month. But you're no small stakes anything, okay?
I mean, yeah, I guess. I just think in the overall scheme of things, I have friends right now that are sitting at the table with 700K in front of them. So I'm like,
right.
My average buy-in online is like $101. So that's
which for online is definitely not small.
No.
Yeah, even for online poker, that's not small stakes. So
no, but it's peanuts in relation
edit
to
that. But yeah, obviously, but one thing about the poker world, it seems like no matter how big we get, there's always someone way above if we look up. So and it's very similar to my other career in comedy, by the way, but we're not going to get into that today. So let's talk about some hands you played live at Borgata. Seems like you, with all those hours you put in during this Borgata Fall Poker Open, there must be a hand, either whatever you have from the tournament that you won or the one where you or the main, whatever you want to talk about would be great.
Yeah, there was a couple things that were interesting that came up. Well, first of all, the tournament that I ended up chopping and taking first, that was my first time. I don't know if you've played like deep and shorthanded with Big Blind Ante, but this was my first. I mean, I've obviously played Big Blind Ante a lot, but I hadn't had, I think, like a a live final table yet.
I haven't. The closest I've come is six max, where maybe a player's missing. So I've played five-handed with big blind ante, but I haven't made my first big blind ante final table yet.
Yeah, so we were in the situation where there was six of us left. The amount separating our stacks was really negligible. So chip leader had, let's say, 5 million, and then second through fifth had between 3.5 and 4.5 million, and then somebody had 3.2 million or something. So it wasn't it wasn't huge, and the blinds were going up to, at the next level, and this is when we decided to chop. The blinds were 600K.
Oh, so. Okay. Yeah, so it's almost a crapshoot at that point, unless there's a player at the table who really has no idea how to play.
Yeah, and so I was kind of in a quandary because, early, as we get to the final table, I thought to myself, and first place in this tournament was, I think, 45K or something. So, my first thought is understanding that, the big blind ante obviously is an issue, but my first thought was I'm not going to chop at this final table because, I just really my husband just had a really great score 48 hours later. Maybe I might be inclined to chop shorthanded if whatever the situation, comes up, but I just kind of felt I want to try to play this out, I really just want to play it out and get the experience. It's 45K for first. It's, let's just play it out and have some fun. And we get six-handed and we're on break, and I've never seen five men at the same final table, every single one of them just not wanting to sit down to restart the level, every single one of them was just standing and just you guys, this is so stupid, this is really ridiculous. And I was God, I feel bad, I feel the same way, yes, I would love to sit here and win 45K right now, but the players just were not happy, I have to say. They weren't happy, and this was kind of an eye-opening experience for me. It's something that I, over the next few days, I actually went to our tournament director, Tab, at Borgata, and, talked to him about and had some really, eye-opening discussion about this, because it's one thing to talk about it, Clayton. It's another thing to experience it yourself, and so I don't know what's going to happen with Big Blind Ante. I don't know if they're going to eventually make some adjustments at the final table, doing something maybe they have the ante or something. But the play just really was non-existent for the amateurs, and I think in the end that's going to be not good for poker because the amateurs will feel at such a disadvantage when they get to that stage of the game. You see what I'm saying?
I do. So let's talk about these numbers. So at this point in the tournament, the blinds are 300,000, 600,000 with a big blind ante of 600,000. So there's 1.5 million in the pot as the cards are being dealt. And the chip leader has how many chips?
5.2.
Right. So in terms of M, you're basically playing what is that, about 9?
Yeah.
Wait, 5.2? Oh my God, I'm wrong. No, 5.2.
I was going to say 4 or something.
No, yeah, it's between 3 and 4. 5.2, 1.5. Yeah, it's between 3 and 4. So, anyone who's studied M, or if you just want to do how many big blinds do we have, Katie, the listeners are going to be laughing through this part because it seems like every week I start pounding the table about how we all must start thinking in terms of M. We have to think in terms of M. And the reason why is because if you take a tournament from even 2 years ago, the final table would have 300,000, 600,000 with maybe a 75,000 ante. So six-handed, instead of 1.5 million in the middle, there would be only 1.2 million.
Yeah, just under. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you think of it that way, that makes a big difference. There are two ways to solve this. One is to not change anything. And players will just need to take more chances earlier in the tournaments so that they don't get to the final table with an M of 3 as a chip leader with an M of 3 or 4. The reason why the final tables nowadays often feel short stacked is because players are waiting for the nuts and not taking chances. Everyone has learned from training sites to try to avoid variance, and I've seen players say, it's too early, I don't want to take a coin flip. They don't want luck to play a role in the tournament. So if you and there's also, everyone's learned so much about ICM, so it's like, well, if I just fold this hand that I might otherwise play and wait for that guy to bust out, then maybe I can make a few thousand more. And all of that stuff has caused the blinds at antes to gradually eat us up. The problem is when it gets short-handed, they don't eat us up gradually. They eat us up. They swallow us whole.
Yeah, and that's what the Rex will remember. That's the taste in their mouth that we don't want. And that's the problem that I have with that. So
what they could do is say, when we get into the money, the antes go cut into half, or any similar solution where there's just more play. The relationship between the stack and the pot is always going to determine the theoretically optimal strategy for playing.
But it's like, when do you have the ante? Because this is exactly what Tab and I were discussing. It's when do you do it? Do you do it at 6-handed? Do you do it at 18 players?
Right.
What makes the most sense? And the problem is that nobody, I think at this point, as far as like tournament directors or poker rooms, nobody's really going to be willing to like take that risk right now, because big blind ante is still catching on. Like there's places that still are not using big blind ante. Remember, not every tournament this summer was big blind ante in the World Series even. So
right.
I don't know that they're going to be willing to make another adjustment to this adjustment like right now. And that's problematic, I think, because, if we're able to recognize an issue right away, specifically like at some of these places like Borgata that are running these huge tournaments on a really consistent basis, like those are the tournament staff you should be listening to, because those are the people that are way more in touch with what the players, want and don't like. And this has just been, this was my experience from this tournament, was that, these players, just weren't happy about the lack of play at the final table. And that's the exact opposite of what BorgataPoker.com is known for, because we're known for our, very comprehensive structures and how it encourages and how final table play and deep play. So it's tough for me to be, something for me to be, dealing with, because it's like you want everybody to enjoy what, the experience.
So what was the buy-in? How much did it cost to play that tournament?
So this was a 300, and they're just like unlimited reentry up until maybe level 10 or something.
Right. Okay.
Which is like 3/4 of the way through the day.
Right. So maybe that's part of the problem too. There's a lot of things you could do to tweak the structure of the tournament. My thinking, and I'm sure that you and I disagree on this, but my thinking is that a $300 tournament should have a turbo element to it. I don't think they should have 10 levels of re-entry, but I don't think that will change, because ever since tournaments moved from a rebuy to a re-entry format, the house is now making a lot more money off of all of those re-entries, and they didn't used to rake rebuys in tournaments. If you were playing in a rebuy eligible tournament, you could buy back in, and all of the rebuy money went directly to the prize pool. I'm sure you remember that if you started in 2006. I guess 5 or 6 years ago, rebuys kind of became a thing of the past. I'm sure you can find one on Poker Stars or someplace in the world, but it's very few and far between at this point, and casinos are making a lot more money off of that. And obviously, the longer we keep registration open, the more money we can collect off of those re-entries and the rake that comes with each and every one. So all that just to say, I don't think that's going to be a solution that the casinos will like, although it would solve this problem.
Well, it would kind of have, left. I mean, it would kind of have a twofold effect because, firstly, yes, I don't know what I feel about reentry period ending. However, I will tell you that yes, reentry period lasts X amount of levels, and yes, the tournament is raking every single entry. But guess what is also not happening? Because people are continuing to re-enter the tournament, and then maybe they're paying their $35 rake, but they're not going and playing cash. They're not going and playing sit and goes. So that's something that everywhere has seen is there used to be way more thriving sit and go environments. There used to be way more thriving cash games during even like these, random series during the year. But now that reentry is open so long, it's kind of hard to get like sit and goes going. It's kind of hard to get live satties going at times.
Right.
And
so what happens is everybody's still in the tournament and they just keep firing and firing.
They keep firing.
Yeah. And so then no one's playing cash and no one's playing sit and goes, which is a side effect of this that is an issue and a side effect that I hadn't considered because I've never been a brand ambassador or a sponsor pro. But yeah, that is something to think about. There's a trade-off there, right? I mean, the poker players who show up, it's a finite number, and then they have X amount of cash with which to play, and everybody wants to win the tournament. So if you're going to keep letting me play the tournament, I can remember back in 06 when you started, there used to be a $65 nightly tournament at Taj Mahal. It was a $50 buy-in with a $15 entry fee. Mm-hmm. And we would get like 300 players.
Yeah, I've won that tournament before.
Yeah, every night, right? And you probably won like $4,000 or $5,000.
And then there was also like a Midnight Madness. Also, there was a tournament.
Well, that was later. They added the Midnight Madness. But see, to me, that was part of the problem because that $65 tournament at one point was the only tournament at the Taj Mahal that day. There was no early tournament and there was no later tournament. People would come early, play cash until the tournament started, and when they busted out of the tournament, they would play cash again. So having all of these tournament options is only, if that's what the players want, that's why the casinos are giving it to them.
Sure.
But then to make it worthwhile for the casinos, they need to get rid of rebuys and just keep raking all of these additional buy-ins, which I don't blame them because I understand that's the business model, but there is a price for that. So let's assume that the casinos are not going to drastically change the format. I don't mean to be pessimistic about that, but we have to try this for a while and see what works and what doesn't. I think something that would really help is if players would adjust their strategies accordingly. I think people take ICM a little too far. I think people don't take as many spots as they used to. By the way, that Taj Mahal tournament, you would start with like 80 big blinds and half the field would be gone by the first break. Just because that's how we used to play. People love to go all in. Now everyone's min raising and everyone's, doing so much pot control, and just the style of poker that we're playing has changed as training sites and other professional coaches have encouraged everyone to avoid variance. And, even at your final table, if you had played for the win there, you had the chip lead, right? Mm-hmm. So you had a marginally better chance, and I mean marginally better chance of winning that tournament with your M of 3.5 as the chip leader, just because you had more chips and could afford to lose one. Mm-hmm. one pre-flop all in, right? Mm-hmm. And you just didn't want to play for that kind of money with that kind of variance, which I cannot blame you at all.
Yeah, I mean, and nobody did. Nobody did. That's the thing. Nobody did. I mean, nobody wanted to take these flips, and
maybe that's part of the problem right there, Katie. Is that I think that not only at the final table players are avoiding taking flips, but strategically, as players get more and more sophisticated in terms of
understanding
understanding the game, understanding ICM, and understanding why variance works against you in survival-based games, then people have gotten too tight too nitty. And then as a result, a tournament that should take 10 hours takes 3 days. I don't mean to say should, but I could say
No,
that
I mean,
would otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, you said this before. Like you said, you probably would disagree with me about, live tournament turbo. Listen, I've said this before, if every live tournament I ever played for the rest of my life was a turbo, I would be a very happy person. Like, I am definitely in favor of that concept. But the problem is just it's not something that the players really want,
It's not what the players want because it's not what they're being taught, and it's not the current thinking in terms of how best to approach this game of tournament no limit hold'em. And because of that, where, if you can imagine if players had taken more spots and embraced variance even a little bit, showing up at the final table with a big blind of, let's say, 200,000 instead of 600,000, your M would have been 10, which I think the chip leader in a $300 tournament at the final table it's fine if your M is 10. I think that's okay because it's a $300 tournament. Now, if you play a super high roller, you don't want to have such a short stack as a chip leader at the final table, but that's the part. In other words, the players have brought this on themselves in a sense because everyone's so averse to variance and everyone has gotten so sophisticated in terms of game theory. And I don't think that much game theory out there discusses, well, what is the value of not taking this coin flip if it just means that I'm going to have to follow the old standard push-fold chart in 5 minutes anyway when the blinds go up again. So, I mean, tournament poker has always been, to some degree, a race between how fast the players can play and how fast the blinds and antes can move up. They're always coming for you. The blinds and antes are always coming for you. And in this particular tournament, the blinds and antes got there way before the players wanted them to. And then as a result, everyone at the final table was unhappy. But I think that all 6 of you should take some responsibility for that because you could have played faster earlier and not gotten to that point.
Yeah, I mean, listen, maybe it's something that ends up fixing itself because the players
Nobody wants that, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just the players are just so much more incentivized to chop, so that ends up generally, making people happy. So maybe it just fixes itself that way. But listen, it's really tough, like for these poker rooms because they can't please everybody and they're trying to do everything they can to enhance the player's experience because they are raising the rake, right? Like rake is going up and that's also not going to stop too, right? So, it's like when you see like adjustments like this that are being implemented to enhance the experience of the game, not just for the players, but it's also easier, I think, on the dealers. It's easier on the staff. But then something like this emerges, situation like this that you just, has to play out enough times for you to really, truly understand it and understand what to do about it. And then everybody complains about that too. It's just like nothing's ever, like no process is perfect. You still have to figure stuff out and figure out like the right ways to adjust. And it just takes time.
It takes time. And I think, they're wise to not think that they'll ever find a solution that pleases everybody. The best,
but they're trying.
They are trying, and that's a noble cause to try to please everybody. But the fact is, you can't please everybody, and poker players are notoriously opinionated about everything from poker to politics. So, of course, the people will be vocal and they will express their displeasure. But I'm just saying, I think it would be nice to see more players actually accept their role in what happens. Everybody knew the rules of the game before it started, that we're going to have a big blind ante, and maybe people didn't think ahead, well, how is that going to affect my strategy? But maybe we should have looked at this thing as more of a turbo than we did, and then we could have avoided this unfortunate I hate to see players get that far in an event and be at a final table and all of them be unhappy.
Yeah.
But I also think that they should accept that they had something to do with it too. So I hope you're not offended by that.
No, definitely not. I mean, no, it's good. It's good to talk about these things because this is how you eventually figure out the right solution and, which is the right way to go. So.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So this has been the Tournament Director Association podcast. No, I'm just kidding. I feel like we're really getting into behind the scenes stuff, but I think people will find that very interesting, although probably not as interesting as actually discussing the hand that you played.
There was one hand that I played. This was during the $2,700 main event last week.
$2 million guarantee or $1 million?
This was the Fall Poker Open is a $1 million guarantee. Okay. 2,700. The WPTs in September and January are the 3,500. I think it's either 2 or 3 million guarantee. I forget. It's 3 million, I think. But yeah, so this was a 2,700. And this hand, it wasn't a hand that the play was like, I did anything crazy. I mean, well, he certainly did something crazy or whatever, but, it was just more so like, I wasn't really exactly thrilled with how I handled the hand because I just definitely got frustrated and I kind of just I kind of said something under my breath, what are you doing? And that's not normal for me. And I think it was just, it's just this very, rare occurrence where it just kind of made me think because it's I don't play as much live poker as a lot of these people do. I'm mostly online and, it's just kind of, for me, it's just one of the constant struggles is just, it's just kind of how to, not how to handle yourself. It's just sometimes you get really, really frustrated with what somebody does. And especially when it's in a really important tournament is for a lot of chips and,
you're only dealing with humans.
And then you're only playing one tournament. Whereas if I'm home, I have, 6 or 8 shots going and it's whatever, one tournament's nothing, but you're playing this one tournament for how many days, a big buy-in. And then just somebody does something just really absurd. And it was just kind of everything kind of came together for me. And it was actually the first time that I was playing one of the Borgata mains, which was
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Katie, but do you want to review the details of the hand or just the juicy part at the end?
Yeah, I mean, it was just it was really stupid. It was just I want to say the blinds were 600, 300, 600. This guy opens, under the gun 2. We're playing 8-handed. We might have even been playing 7-handed, because these mains generally start pretty short-handed because people late reg. So we were playing 5-handed for, a very long time actually. So he just opens under the gun 2 to 1,500. I just call on the button with king 10 of clubs, and we are, starting stack in this tournament was 30K. He had probably 40K, and I had just over 80K actually.
Okay.
So I had chipped up quite a bit at this point. And so the big blind also defends. So we're 3 ways, and the flop is king 6 deuce, 2 spades. I have king 10 clubs. Big blind checks. The opener bets. Let's just say he bet 2,500. I forget the exact amount. I called. Big blind folds. The turn is a 10, a red 10.
All right, so now we have 2 pair, and there's about 10,000 chips in the pot-ish.
Yeah. So he checks. I bet about 3/4 pot, and he calls. And the river is a 5, so the board reads king deuce 6 10 5 rainbow, and he just shoves. And he shoves for pot size bet or whatever. He shoves for 27K or something like that.
So 4-3 got there, pocket 5s got there. What else got there?
I mean, and so this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking okay, it's possible that he's, it's possible he's doing this with ace king because he just doesn't know what to do. He doesn't want to have to call off. So this is a defensive shove for some reason, but the river just doesn't really complete anything that he would be check calling the turn with. So I didn't take too long to call. I think I took maybe like 5 seconds to call because like it just like nothing really made
fold.
Like nothing really made sense to me. And even though like this is a like more than half my stack at this point in this hand, I just didn't see what kind of hand other than a flopped set or just a very weak one pair hand. I just wasn't really I wasn't really believing like what he was doing. And I ended up calling, and he actually did have a pair of 5s in his hand. So he bet flop and then check called the turn with 2 5s in his hand. Ugh. And I just was like, and then like I see the river, and like I even said, I was like, the 5 was on the river, right? like the 5 was the river, right? And like a couple people started laughing, and I was just like, oh, I'm like, what are you doing? And like, and like I shouldn't, I just should, it was a very mild reaction from me, but it was still just like I wasn't happy that I even said that, because I just don't ever.
Katie, I have to tell you, I'm so disappointed. I thought we were going to get this juicy. I'm not proud of. I mean, the way you set it up, I'm not proud of what I did. There was a thing that happened, and I couldn't control myself. And you're like, the 5 is on the river, right?
I mean, I just don't think that like I should say anything, other than nice hand,
Agreed.
So,
so yeah. Of all the things you could have said, the 5 is on the river is pretty mild, as you said. So, all right.
But for me, that was like an error. It was just an error in just me allowing, just me kind of, losing a little bit of control in a situation that I shouldn't have, because I have. A decent amount of experience for this type. I mean, yes, it's a $2,700 buy-in, but that's not an unusual amount of money for me to be in for on a Tuesday or a Sunday, or you know what I mean. So it's not like
a good way of looking at it. Yeah, you would normally be playing, that much in spread out across 8 or 10 tables online or whatever you play.
Sure.
It's really it's the same dollar amount. It's just. We talk about this a lot on the podcast, how much more it hurts to take a bad beat in a live event, because you're basically always one tabling, and it's hard.
Yeah. And that was kind of like what happened to me. I just was like, and I felt really badly. And, and I actually had a girlfriend at the table. One of my girlfriends was actually at the table, and I even texted her like afterwards, and I was just like, oh, I just feel like not right after, but like, after I ended up busting a little while later to Erin Massey, I texted her, and I was just like, oh, I just feel really badly about like my reaction. She's like, oh no, you're fine, blah blah blah, whatever. But it was just
I would feel worse about losing to Erin Massey.
Yeah, especially since like I texted the hand history to one of my friends, and he was just like, yeah, I might consider folding pre to him, and I had queens.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it was just like a very like, queens versus aces, like nothing,
nothing.
Whatever.
No, I'm just kidding. I think Erin Massey's a fun person to pick on, because I feel like he always draws a big target on his chest. So as far as some people might be listening to this, like me, they were expecting a much bigger verbal blow up at the end with the setup that you gave us. But what you guys need to understand, I've known Katie for many, many years, maybe I'd say at least 7 or 8 years, maybe longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've never seen you comment on anyone's play at the table. I mean, the way you comport yourself at the table is just a perfect role model, a great example. Like sometimes you might be a little bit quiet, like maybe not completely social, but you're never. And
I'm working on that.
Yeah, well, especially as a sponsored pro, brand ambassador, whatever we want to call it. Like, you do need to show your teeth a little bit more, and press some flesh, kiss some babies, that kind of stuff. Of course, that's part of the job. But even before you had sponsorships, and when you were just another grindette on the grind. I thought that you were always just, very classy. And so where someone listening might be like, well, I would have told the guy to stick it up, whatever. for you, the standard to which you hold yourself is that you would never say something after taking a bad beat like that. Or whatever.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. It's nice to hear you say that, because I do hold myself to an extremely high standard, and it's just something it's just the way I am. It's not anything that I can't change that if I wanted to.
Right.
It's just how I am, and I can't. At times it's tough though, because it's like, when do you stop beating yourself up for something like that? I made a really terrible, if you want to talk about another hand really fast, I made a really terrible mistake in a satellite the other night online.
Definitely.
Where it's just like, I'm just like mortified. Like, how do I make this mistake? Like, it's just something I should know, where this was online on WSOP, which I can say that, by the way, my sponsorship does not disallow me to play on other sites, which is
Nice.
Yeah. They realize that I need to pay my rent, so.
Okay, and they're not paying your rent. So.
They help.
Yeah.
But this was, so they had an online 1K, 50K, like once a month they have a 50K guarantee, 1K buy-in. They have some satellites for it, and so this was an $150 satellite, 10-seat guarantee, and the prize pool was paying 12 seats, so 12 $1,000 seats. 13th place was getting $232, and I'm 13 of 13. The blinds are 1,600, and being 13 of 13, I have 9,600 in chips.
Okay.
So we are hand for hand. And
is there an ante?
Let's just say the ante is like 16% or something.
Okay. So it's something like 800, 1,600 with maybe like 100 ante?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's fine. Just say that. Yeah, just 100.
All right.
And the button shoves. It's folded to the button, shoves, and the button covers me very, 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 very slightly. The button shoves for like 10-5. And I'm in the small blind, 9,600. Big blind has a lot of chips. Big blind has like 50K or something. I have ace 10 of diamonds, and I'm in the small blind for 800 and 9,600 in chips.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy, but I think folding is the play, just because you have there's so much value in folding, and you're probably behind, or if you're not behind, if you are ahead, you're not ahead by much, unless he has specifically an ace that you dominate.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's I mean, I don't think you should beat yourself up for calling.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's definitely like, but the issue is, it's not really about like your hand strength, though. That's the thing,
Right,
like you have a strong hand, and like a lot of times you're going to be, button's going to be jamming wider, even though you are like hand for hand. But button has to have like something decent, because you are jamming into a big stack in the big blind, right? And you are hand for hand, so like,
and you're not the shortest stack.
It's not the shortest stack, right? He is jamming into somebody who potentially could bust before him or her. So like you're like, it's just, I mean, I don't think you're supposed to fold aces. I don't think you're supposed to fold kings, but like, I actually had asked my friend, Matt Hunt. I don't know if you know who Matt Hunt is.
No.
He works with, Matt Berkey's group Solve for Why in Vegas.
Great. Yeah.
And he's like a solver guy, and I actually used to play online versus him, post Black Friday, like 2012, 2013. We used to battle in Full Tilt Poker, actually.
Awesome.
Ginger 45 was his screen name. Anyway, he's like, he actually like he put this, ran some numbers for me and everything. And that button's supposed to jam 66%, but we are only supposed to call jacks plus. And that's like from a pure ICM, like, viewpoint. And so, and what ended up happening was, I did call, and then what ends up happening some of the time too is that big blind, also calls and, busts both of us. And because I had, least amount of chips,
Right.
I bubble, which is exactly what happened. He called with ace 9. Button had queen jack, and and I got knocked out and Queen Jack got knocked out. So,
I'm very surprised that you're supposed to fold tens according to the solver. That's a surprise. Yeah. I would have thought the range would be more like ace jack plus and
even Jack's is break even, by the way. So it's like a very, very slight. So it's really like queens, kings, and aces, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's and that's like and that was frustrating for me because that's a pretty big error on my part because that's something that should be more automatic and I shouldn't be. Calling, I shouldn't be calling. And like, as I'm thinking about it, I just kind of was just like, whatever. And that was just like a lack of discipline also on my part where, that's just, it's just something that you always have to like work on. Like nobody's immune to this stuff. It's like, I've been playing online poker for most of my adult life and I'm still making these stupid mistakes, and it's like everybody does it. And it's just, you have to like admit that you're making the mistakes. That's the thing. And then do something to fix it for God's sake,
and then also admit that you will continue to make mistakes for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And the best that we can hope for is to minimize them.
Yeah.
And, you can't lose sleep over a mistake you made at the poker table.
Sure.
Barry Greenstein famously said he makes hundreds of mistakes every time he plays. And, he's a pretty well regarded player, right? So if he's making hundreds of mistakes, now he means that he could have bet a little bit bigger and gotten paid, or he could have bluffed for a smaller amount and still gotten it through. Mistakes is a relative term, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, in this case, using those chips in an aggressive way rather than making a marginal call.
For sure.
Especially now that we know what the solver says, is a mistake for sure. But it's not the biggest mistake you've ever made at the poker table, and it won't be the biggest mistake you make probably in the next 6 to 12 months.
Well, 6 to 12 hours maybe.
Yeah. So in other words, unlike the chess player you were born and raised to be, you have to remember that you're not a robot, and you will make mistakes and don't beat yourself up about this or about saying the 5 came on the river. You're human. You're at the end of the day, you're a person, flesh and blood, and that's how we are. We all make mistakes, and that's just life. Except for Aaron Massey, he is perfect. We didn't get to do as much strategy as I hoped, and that the listeners are used to, but this way. I think for some of our listeners, this will be their first introduction to you. So my hope is that this hour of your life wasn't so painful that you'll reject me next time I ask you to come on the podcast.
No. I had a great time. I had a great time with you, and I definitely would love to come back and talk to you anytime for sure.
Good. And now that we know who you are and where you come from, we can skip the biographical background and get more into some deep hand analysis next time. But I think that we had a lot of topics to talk about here, whether it's how to handle big blind ante tournaments. Maybe we need to think about possibly adjusting our strategy. I'd love for you guys to get at me on Twitter and let me know what you think, whether it's on the casino to make us happy or whether we should maybe accept responsibility for playing a little bit faster and treating it more like a turbo or even a hyper turbo, given the fact that the blinds are about to go up in a big way when the big blind ante combined with being shorthanded. The effect of that is that it essentially speeds up the game substantially. Want to hear about that? Maybe you can share with us some of your stories about things that you said when the opponent sucked out on the river. I'll bet we've got some stories out there that are much worse than, wait, the 5 was on the river, right? That's a very, very small needle there. I don't even think it counts as a needle, more like a safety pin. So tweet me at Clayton Comic. And, Katie, please tell them how they can follow you and your career.
I'm on Twitter at Katie Stone Poker. And I tweet a lot about Borgata stuff, but I also tweet, a lot about other stuff too. So.
Right. So even if you're nowhere near New Jersey, she's a great follow. and obviously a brilliant mind, both in poker and a conscientious person that's trying to live life in a good way, which I always like when those two things happen to appear in the same human being. So for Katie Stone and for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
Like they do in Texas plays. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Log in, intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. I wanna roll with her, a hard pair we will be. While little gambling is fun when you're with me. I love it. Russian roulette is not the same without a gun. And baby, when it's love, it's not rough, it isn't fun. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. Can't read mine, no she can't read about poker face. She's got to love nobody. Can't read mine,